Are we headed into another recession like it was in 2008? I mean, what about all those job losses? And what about the real estate market? Are we going to be able to buy and sell again? Well, this is Mike McGinnis of Landmark Realty coming to you with a market update. So, why don't we ask the experts these important questions? The likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Wells Fargo. 3 out of the 4 say that we are going to have a recovery by the end of the third quarter. And 4 out of 4 all agree that by the end of the fourth quarter, we should see a recovery in the economy. So it's not going to be an L shape where there is a long drawn out recovery, but it's more like a V shape where it's a drastic increase, which we've already hit, and it's actually going to start recovering relatively quickly, especially when the pause is over. According to Sam Cater, chief economist at Freddie Mac, although the uncertainty of the crisis means forecasts of economic activity are more unclear than usual, we expect that most of the economic damage from the virus will be contained to the first half of the year. Going forward, we should see a recovery starting in the second half of 2020. Even CNBC says evidence is mounting that home buyers may be coming back to the market after demand plummeted in the past month due to coronavirus. So the impact of the coronavirus to the real estate showings, right at the beginning, in the beginning of March, we saw a drastic decrease of showings, obviously because of the pandemic. But at the end, the following month and beginning of April, we saw that it started to increase again. That interest started going up, and we see that it started actually increasing and up until May 7th. Now, during the Great Recession, beginning almost at 2005, the amount of home ownership drastically decreased. And it wasn't until 2015 and beginning of 2016 that we actually seen this turnaround. And now we're starting to see an increase again in home ownership. One of the reasons why? Well, the median asking price for rent has skyrocketed. Since 1988 until 2020, it's cost more now to rent a home or rent an apartment than it does to actually have home ownership with the right programs out there. Also, it's not the same as 2008 because of the amount of equity that people have in the market, in their homes. 42%, 42.1% of the people own their home outright, 100% equity. 16.6 actually are in the category of 60 to 99%. So what is that saying? That 58.7% of all homeowners in America have at least 60% equity. No one's walking away from that kind of money. As a matter of fact, the national average is about 177,000 in home equity. And I believe it's even more in New York. So people are not going to be giving up their homes. It's not the same as it was in 2008. So now what about all those job losses? Well, let's take another look at that. And let's take a closer look. Right now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, okay, it actually has gone down. As a matter of fact, it just went down as of May. It's now at 2.9 million. Now, it's still a lot. It's still a lot. We saw, if you look at a graph from the U.S. Bureau of Labor, it was pretty much during this administration maintaining about 3.5 unemployment. And then we had the spike of 14.1% of unemployment. So, but if we break down the unemployment of who is collecting unemployment, 37.6% are servers and bartenders. The other part is retail. We can even go like to doctor's offices, manufacturing, and childcare. As a grandparent who's raising his grandchild, believe me, as soon as the recovery happens, I can't wait until we can get childcare back. So when the restaurants open, when the bars open, when the movies open, when the malls start opening, these people are going to probably go back to work. So now with this drastic increase in unemployment at 14.7%, it's still saying that 85.3% of people are employed or have sustainable income. Another thing is 90% of the unemployed, it's temporary. Only 10% are like long term. And a very, very interesting statistic as far as who's claiming unemployment. If we look at the bottom, 13% adult men, 15% adult women, 31%, almost 32% are teenagers. Those are the people in the service bureau who are working at McDonald's, who are working at Wendy's, who are working at the restaurants and the pizzerias, and they're the ones that have been claiming unemployment. So when we put into perspective, we see that it's not as bad as it appears. So now, what's going to happen in this economy, according to Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, like I said, it's more of a V recovery, where they're looking at it's going to recovery in a year and a half. See, during the Great Recession in 2006 to 2016, it was almost 9 years before it finally recovered. The Great Depression was almost 12 years before that recovered. But Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are both predicting that it's going to be within a year that we're going to see a recovery. So what's our biggest threat for the real estate market? Actually, the biggest threat is inventory, which is actually still keeping prices up. Housing supply remains at historical low levels. So house price growth is likely to slow, but it's not likely to go negative. That's according to Mark Fleming, chief economist at First America. So looking at this graph over here, we see that seller traffic was starting to decrease at the beginning in February, and that's when we started hearing about coronavirus. And then by March, when everybody started saying we're at pause, you see that the gray in the top right shows that there's no seller traffic whatsoever. The interesting thing is, if you look at the bottom of the graph, there was still buyer traffic. Buyers were still out there looking. Buyers were still trying to see, because there were still some older listings that were out there that actually were getting sold during this period. So it's interesting, while the buyer traffic decreased a little bit, it was still active, we see in March of 2020. So what does that say for us? Well, what it's saying is that the market, it's still good. People still want to buy. And when we get out of the recovery, when we do recover from this, people are still going to want to buy and sell their homes. We have coming out in June the summer 2020 buyer and seller's guide. If you would like a copy, you can hit the link below. It's either in the Facebook comments or below in the YouTube comments. And I'm glad to get you that if you want to know what the value of your home is. Any requests that you have, or even any questions, I'd be glad to help you out. This is Mike McGinnis over at Landmark Realty, and hope this information helped.